Apparently, there is not an app for this.
Ladies and gentlemen, the doctor is in, and we're going to be talking to comic book collector, comic book writer, Charles Adams. Charles and I worked together decades ago in the 90s for some itty bitty press, uh, and we've been friends for well over 30 years now. Well, about 30 years. And he's got a huge collection. We're going to be talking to him. Let me get the link sent out here. Do, 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 do. Let's see who all wants to join in. I'm still not good at all the techno stuff. Here we go. All right. Now I have appropriately posted it. And we'll just see if anybody jumps in. Got a private chat from Charles saying hello. All right. So now we're good. So anyway, good to see you, buddy.
It's good to be here.
And why don't you tell the folks about your collection? When you started collecting, how big is your collection, and what you are currently collecting?
Well, I started collecting comic books back at the age of 17, which was back in 1987. So I've been collecting them for over 40 years now. And my collection, I basically have 62 long boxes, which probably translates to somewhere between around 20,000 comic books.
About 20,000. And you collect some other stuff too. What else do you collect?
Oh, wow. I collect all kinds of stuff.
The pop culture stuff.
Got lots of toys. I focus on like action figures. So I got bunches of those. I love Lego. So I got a lot of different Lego collections, coins, stamps, all kinds of stuff.
All right. And most of the Playboys. Almost the whole run.
Pretty close.
Yeah. Including some of the hard to find ones, right?
Oh, yes.
All right.
Not really the early ones like the first Marilyn Monroe or the first Betty Page. I'd like to have those, but
yeah, no doubt. Let me see here. And we froze. No, we didn't. There we are. I was looking at the wrong screen. I am not the best tech guy in the world. So, what are you collecting now? As far as comic books go.
Yeah, as far as I get my comic books every week. The main thing that I collect is Batman. He's that one character that no matter how good a writing it is or how poor it is, I collect it just because I'm a completist and have to continue the run on the Batman stuff. But there's plenty of other comic books that I'm collecting. Like I like all the X-Men stuff. So I'm getting that. I tend to focus mainly on probably DC stuff, but I like Marvel and I got a few independents in there as well.
And you, to the best of my knowledge, based on our recent conversations, you're just now becoming aware of like the crowd-funded independent guys on Indiegogo and Kickstarter. So haven't backed any of those yet. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's actually a pretty fairly new medium or a new way of distributing your own comic books, but I understand why the comic book industry is going that direction just because of kind of the political stance some people take.
Yeah, we're going to dive into all that in a minute, but I'd be interested. We'll do another stream before long when you get the opportunity to kind of shop through Indiegogo and say, hey, this one looks good to me, this one maybe not, and kind of get your feedback on that stuff. See what impresses you and what doesn't. Of course, I know one book you'll be backing.
Yes. But somebody needs to go ahead and post it on Indiegogo so I can back it.
Well, I'm going to launch the mailing list. probably in December. Um, I probably won't finish the book until late January. um, I just finished 25 pages, so I'm giving myself the day off today. I'm not drawing today. I literally have the callus right there. Everybody can see it from drawing, because as a fine artist, when I paint, I'm doing this. I haven't had to do this in forever. And so my fingers are reminding me of the torture of doing that. And guys, if you don't think that's a pain inducing thing, you haven't ever done a comic book. Um, Charles also works at a comic book store. You want to plug that store, Charles?
Yeah, it's Great Escape Comics and Games in Marietta, Georgia. Um, Long-standing comic book store. It's in November will be 28 years that store has been open, which is very unusual in the comic book industry. I remember way back I was actually the first employee that the owner hired there back in the early 90s, and there were all kinds of comic book stores around us, and now they're all pretty much gone except for maybe one or two.
Right,
I mean, we
right.
probably had a dozen within just a 5 mile radius of us, and they're all gone now.
So for some of the younger guys that started collecting, or I should say, just started reading comics in the '90s, that was, during the rise of what we back in the day used to call the dark age of comics, with Image and the Captain Bloody Death Man and Dark and Gritty becoming the new buzzwords. That was a time when, and you can take it from there. The You said there were a whole bunch of comic book stores. There was a boom going on. Death of Superman, Batman being replaced, uh, Ghost Rider, Wolverine just soaring. So, talk a little bit about the environment back then, retail wise and
Well,
collector
yeah,
wise, versus what's going on today.
yeah, that in the early 90s, when it comes to collectibles, and I just not just comic books, but sports cards, just all of that stuff. Yes, there was a huge boom at that time, and so much of that stuff was just way overprinted.
Hmm.
For instance, during that time, you had the X-Men #1, which came out, and that is still holds the record of the top-selling comic book of all time, and it sold right around 8 million copies. Uh, and of course, like when that was around the time that Image first started, and of course they had their problems getting their stuff out on time. But people speculated on that stuff like crazy, and so you had people buying who knows how many copies at a time, a dozen copies, thinking they're going to retire on those in 20 years. Well,
Go
jump
ahead,
forward.
and for people that don't know what a speculator is and what the speculator market was, I mean, you just said a little bit of it, but kind of elaborate on that for folks that don't know.
Well, of course, even today, you still have the speculator market, but that's essentially somebody who comes in the store. They're not really a comic book collector in the traditional sense. They're basically just looking some way to make a quick dollar. So they'll come in and they'll buy up the hottest book at the time, thinking that they could probably flip it within just a couple of days, and sometimes uh, increase their money by 100 times. That's something that's very prevalent in the comic book industry today. But back then, it was also very prevalent, and the
Hmm.
industry really responded to it, and that's why you had so much overprinting of stuff. Not that there were
What
you could
what
really
happens in a comic book store to those gross overprints?
well in at the when they initially come out, it actually benefits the store because I mean, of course, they're selling those through the store. Again, jump forward to say today, and we'll take those Image books for instance, like Spawn #1, Wildcat #1. The very first Image comic book was Youngblood #1. Take all of those. For instance, Spawn #1 today probably sells for a near mint copy around $40,
Hmm.
and I mean we're nearly 30 years replaced from that now, you would think that such an important book like that, because even today Spawn is still being printed, it's still very popular. You would think that a book like that would be selling in the hundreds of dollars. I'll give you a for instance. Uh, Around that time was the first appearance of Harley Quinn in Batman Adventures number 15, I believe it was.
Which I'm given to understand that you happen to have a couple of those.
I do. And that being in a book like that, Batman Adventures, which was based on the animated series, so it wasn't in the regular Batman timeline. So the book wasn't published as much, unlike, say, Spawn number one, which had who knows how many hundreds of thousands of copies printed. The first appearance of Harley Quinn probably had maybe around 40,000 copies of
At
it
the
printed at
most,
the
yeah.
time. And that's actually probably a little high, thinking 40,000. Uh, and in today's market, an ungraded copy of that is around, it probably would sell close to $1,000 now. Now, you mentioned that I have one. I actually did have one graded by CGC, and it came back at a 9.8. It now sells somewhere between $4,000 and $5,000.
Right. We
Um,
were cutting up about that, guys, and Charles said, having $4,000 or $5,000 in the bank isn't that big a deal, but saying I paid off my car with a comic book is a very big deal. It's very cool. Um, but the overrun comics, those end up in the dollar bin, correct, or in the discount bin.
uh, Take Wildcats, the series, for instance. The number one issue probably would not wind up in a dollar bin because it's gonna. I mean, even today, a good copy
No,
of
no,
that
no. I
would
mean,
probably.
let me clarify. I'm talking about the gold cover Lethal Protector number one, the red foil cover Lethal Protector number one. Everyone thinking those are going to be the speculators thinking, oh, this is going to put my kid through college. What ends up happening to those kind of comics?
Nothing really. Uh, Whatever the cover price was back then, it probably is selling for around that today.
Right, right,
Back during that time, the cover price was probably around $1.95, something like that. You might be able to get $4 out of it now,
hmm
um, but that stuff sits in a comic book store's back issue bins for literally decades,
yeah, yeah.
waiting for that one person to come and discover it. Um, so
Some
yeah,
completist to come along and say, I just need to have this, but not the oh, this is the opportunity of a lifetime to cash in on this type situation.
right. Cashing in like that with comic books, it's it's a very long game in comic books. And if you think about it, you have that one issue of Batman Adventures that's worth hundreds of dollars. The complete other issues in that entire series, the Batman Adventure series, is probably worth the run cover price.
Right, right, right.
It's just that one issue. So yes, maybe you liked that series back then, and you may enjoy having that complete run now, but it's really not worth the whole lot except for that one particular issue. And that's
It's
true
not an
with
investment, right?
right. Uh, Thinking that you're going to retire rich off of your comic books, if you're just a serious comic book collector, like I mentioned, I'm a completist. I want to have the entire run of Batman and Detective Comics.
hmm
Um, with that, most of what is in that collection really isn't worth a whole lot. Now,
Right.
certainly, the further you go back, when you start getting in really into the early 70s and before that, even the run of the mill issues are still going to be worth something,
hmm
just because if you think about it, back during that time, people didn't really collect comic books the way they did really starting in the 80s.
hmm
You did have comic book collectors because, like the Overstreet Price Guide, the very first issue of that was published in 1970. You wouldn't publish a price guide list if you didn't have people who were actually
Right,
collecting stuff.
right.
Um, but you didn't have comic book stores really starting to pop up until the early 80s.
hmm
There
hmm
might have been a couple like in the late 70s, but that was when you had started having the specialty stores who
hmm
just
Yeah,
sold comic books.
back when I started collecting, it was spinner racks at Eckerd's drugstore.
Exactly.
Uh,
That's the way when I remember comic books back when I was a kid, and that's exactly what it was at the gas station. You had the spinner rack
hmm
that creaked every time you spun it around.
And
And
every comic book has gone and
exactly.
bent over. Um, there's two kinds of collectors, Charles. There's the speculator collectors or the investment collectors, and there's the readers. You are a reader. You read what you collect, correct?
Well, I would not characterize the speculator as a collector because
Okay.
they're looking to just
Flip it.
get it and flip it and make money on it.
Okay. So let's
You
say
do
the
have,
investors versus the readers.
well, I would actually say collectors versus readers. Yes, you could say a reader is somebody that is a collector, but a reader is just getting the comic book to enjoy the stories, to enjoy the artwork in it. They care nothing about the condition of it. They might buy the book and then not even put it into a comic book back and board, sleeve and board, and then just throw it in a box and forget about it. A collector, like is what I am, I bag and board all of my comic books, even the garbage ones. Everything goes into a bag and board, and then they go into a long box.
But you're
Uh,
reading them.
I do read them, most of
Yeah,
them,
you read what you collect.
right? But I
Okay.
do care about the condition. I want to keep it in near mint condition. I like the bragging points about, hey, look, I've got this comic book that I paid $1 for, and all these years later, it's now worth several $100s.
Hey, Tree Goblin, welcome. How are things over in the UK today, brother? Go ahead, Charles. Just saying hi to the chat.
So yeah, a collector is somebody that, uh, and with collectors, people collect in different ways. Like I said, I'm a completist. So I collect specific titles and I try to get all of the issues with those, like Batman. Wonder Woman
Mhm.
is another one that I do that with.
Do you
Uh,
have some of the Wonder Women from back when she got rid of her powers and she was a fashion designer? Do you have those?
you're talking about in the early 70s, where, yes, I do.
Yeah.
Actually, I have, those are called the I Ching issues.
They're called what now?
The I Ching issues.
I Ching.
And because that was the name of her sensei who was teaching her martial arts during that time.
Okay.
And yes, I do have those.
Outstanding. So the other types of collectors would be, you said you're a completist. I know when I collected, I I guess you would call me a, I mean, I collected, I bagged and boarded and boxed. I never got anywhere near the size of your collection, either the first time in the 70s or later in the 90s when you and I were working in comics. Um, but I think I had one and a half bankers boxes. But it was
Mm-hmm.
mostly, as you know, the Avengers. That's when Steve Epting was doing the work, and he is, by the way, still one of the best out there. Bob Harris was, or Harras, however you say it, he was writing. Tom Palmer was inking. I collected Venom, but again, not speculating. I just liked the idea that they were going to make Venom into a lethal protector. Uh, so I bought into that, and then there was several others. When the big crossover happened that year, I collected everything associated with Proctor, uh, Crystal's daughter, Magneto's heir, that kind of thing. I collected all of those. So I would call myself a reader collector. Now I have literally none of those anymore due to the theft that you're aware of.
Mm-hmm.
So what other kind of collectors?
Well, for
Intense
instance,
Webs, welcome, my friend.
yeah, for instance, I have a friend of mine where he likes collecting first appearances. That's
Hmm.
pretty much all he does is he looks for, and he really goes for the older first appearances. He doesn't try to get like the new things that are coming out now because in today's market, that's kind of one of the selling points that the comic book companies try to do is they'll stick a new character in a comic book just to promote it to try to sell more of that. Whereas
Right.
that whatever that character may be really won't go anywhere. So he does that in the comic book store. We have a customer who he literally wants every single Punisher appearance. It doesn't matter how minuscule it may be in any comic book. He wants Punisher.
Right. Right.
So he does. That's kind of his little
So he
quirk.
follows a character around. Wherever
Exactly.
that character may pop up, he goes and finds that character. Cool. Uh, we got to go there. Safe Space, Snowflake, Pathfinder, slash, everybody's gay. Talk for, well, before we go into that, in fairness, once upon a time there used to be a comic book store on every block back in the 90s, and you said, that your comic book store has survived 28 excuse me, 28 years worth. What happened to those comic book stores?
Well, they essentially just shut down. um, because of the early 90s, there was a bubble that developed, and that bubble burst in the early 2000s. Uh, and really, when the bubble burst, that was when you started seeing some of the smaller comic book stores shut down. Now, also part of the problem is a lot of people out there who open up comic book stores have no idea how to run a business.
Hmm.
And I think
They
that
just
was
like comics. They think this would be a great job to have.
exactly.
Hmm.
And they may open up a new comic book store and not have good inventory, because the two things that a standard comic book store has to have is a good back issue selection and carrying pretty much a full slate of all the new comic books. And
And I would add a third thing: should have damn good and knowledgeable customer service.
well, that should be true of any retail industry that you're in. They should have knowledge of the product that they're selling. um, anyway, so a lot of those comic book stores, I remember because I went to all of them way back in those days. And the one key thing that they did not have was a good back issue selection.
Hmm.
And that is something that even today comic book stores need to do is they need to be willing to buy other people's collections, because that's the only way you're going to replenish your back issues. You
Right.
can't order that stuff anymore. So you have to rely on people bringing them their collections so that you can buy them and refill your back issues. And
Hey, hey, hey to Pops Van Zant. Pops, this is my good friend, Mr. Charles Adams. He's a mega collector. Uh, Pops is an enthusiast and a promoter and a collector and a heck of a great guy. So, welcome, Pops. Glad to have you here with us. Charles, let's talk about it. Um, the soy SJW infestation that has affected all of pop culture certainly did not leave comic books alone. Some big names in Comicsgate, which is a reaction to the SJWs, uh, would be Ethan Van Sciver, Shane Davis, John Malin. These are some big names. Dan Fraga, Artie Bear, Art T. Bear, and who am I missing? Oh, my favorite is Aaron Lopresti. Just great. I mean, he is so much. He reminds me so much of George Perez with his style. Some big names that just because they were conservatives were blacklisted and attacked viciously by the SJW Twitter mobs, the cancel culture. So, in backlash to that, Comicsgate was created. Now, guys, if you're listening, you're familiar with Comicsgate. You're in it with me all the time. I'm fairly new to Comicsgate. Charles had no idea what Comicsgate was until just a week or two ago when we were talking about it. So, from the outside, Charles, looking in, uh, Tree Goblin wants to know if you were ever in a Florida death metal band.
no,
And
I
I
was
think
not.
it's a pretty sincere question. No. Um, but from being outside of Comicsgate, but working in comic books, what have you seen as far as the decline of mainstream comics?
Well,
And
the
while you
whole
answer that, I'm going to warm my coffee up, so you go ahead.
yeah the I love the idea that um, Comicsgate is up and running now, because I do think culturally we do need to uh, essentially make a parallel society to everything, and that's what Comicsgate is. Um, Oh, there's my cat. Get her out of the way. So anyway, yes, in comic books, a lot of it. One of my biggest frustrations with this is taking established characters and then changing them into something that they are not.
And were never meant to be.
Yeah. Uh, Sorry, Doc, but there for a minute, my cat interrupted me and got right in front of the camera.
No worries. Oh God, what's his name? One of the CG Kings. He has several cats, and they frequently do that to him. Shane Davis, of course, just got fully funded on Starlight Cats and fulfilled it. So we're cat friendly in CG.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, back to the subject. For instance, the issue hasn't come out yet, but you have the son of Superman who's coming out as being at least bisexual.
Same thing as gay. We just call it gay.
Right. Of course, they already did that to Tim Drake in Batman Urban Legends #6.
And Catwoman. And Poison Ivy.
Well, they haven't done it with Catwoman yet. They did.
Yes,
You're
they
thinking
have.
of not with Catwoman, no. Harley Quinn, I think is what you're thinking about.
No, I'm pretty sure Catwoman too. It was Catwoman and some. Anyway, Ethan did a stream on this, and it's. I'll send you the link to the video. It's literally a magician pulling a rabbit out of a hat, and it's this character's gay, this character's gay, this character's gay. And he listed all of them. I think Catwoman's on that list.
Well, I would need to know what issue that was in because I've been reading her for a long time, and they haven't done anything like that. They really explored the relationship between her and Bruce Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
But the one between Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn is definitely a big one. Yeah. They've been doing that for quite a few years. That may have been one of the first ones that they started doing it with.
Yeah.
Personally, I have no problem if they want to create a new character and do something like that with them.
Mm-hmm.
That's understandable, but don't take established characters and change them into something that they were never meant to be to begin with.
Cyclops and Wolverine having an intimate butt buddy affair on the moon when they were both busy chasing Jean Grey for so many years kind of breaks the idea of the love triangle.
Mm-hmm.
Catwoman on TV was a gay black woman, says Tree Goblin. We're talking about what's her name? From the original Batman TV, Eartha Kitt.
Yeah, Eartha
was she
Kitt.
gay? I don't remember.
Well, that was back in the 60s. I don't think they would have done that back then. That wouldn't have been allowed on TV at that time.
Well, no, they wouldn't. I think he means Eartha Kitt was gay. But I don't know that. So.
Well, I don't know about that her either, but
yeah. But I liked all the Catwomen on the original Batman TV show. They were my favorite episodes. You can't go wrong. So yeah, they create. I should say create because that's a horrible word for what they're doing. But what it does create is an instant, literal flash in the pan of interest in issue number whatever when this character came out as gay. But that is not the same as writing the Korvac Saga or Demon in a Bottle or Crisis on Infinite Earths. That's not storytelling, and that's not really character development. We all know they're not exploring their sexuality because there's no way that once they create a gay character, they're ever going to go, well, I tried this gay thing out. I'm just not really with it. I'm going back to women, because the SJWs would have a complete and total meltdown.
Right. All they're doing is they're pushing an agenda. They're not trying to tell good stories. They're just trying to push this cultural agenda. And
Goblin, you got to get with me on that. I haven't heard that. Recently on streaming channels, the Catwoman on TV was a gay black woman. Is that on like one of the... Oh, that was Batgirl. You're right. She's the new Batgirl is a lesbian and she's African American. Correct.
Oh, talking about in the TV show?
Yeah, that CW Batwoman.
Oh, yeah, that train wreck of a show.
Yes.
That's actually not Batgirl though. That's Batwoman.
Oh, not to be confused with Barbara Gordon.
Right. Now,
Gotcha.
that's actually a good example, though. In the comic book, when Batwoman was created, let me rephrase that. Batwoman was actually created back in the 60s. There was a Batwoman back then. When they brought her back really in the 90s, when she was, I guess you could say, recreated, she was a lesbian at that time. So I don't have an issue with that.
Right.
They essentially created a new character and they made her that way. I
But
mean,
it was not Barbara Gordon, correct?
no, Barbara Gordon has never been gay, at least not yet.
I know. Tree Goblin says it's just all too much. You can't keep up with sexuality, let alone the characters. What are you this week? I'm gay this week. Okay, I got you.
No, I haven't watched I only watched the first season of Batwoman. And I'll be honest with you, the only reason why I watched it was because it had the crossover episode with the Crisis on Infinite Earths that they did at that
Right.
time. And Ruby Rose is just an awful actress.
Yeah, she's got exactly one emotion.
Yeah. Uh, so if you like her, great. But I just think she's
No, she's
awful.
a train wreck. She's a garbage human being too.
Yes. Anyway, she was awful on that show. The show was not good.
Intense Web says, I'm like, hey, I'm just the cameraman. You go right on ahead. You do you, baby.
So I haven't even watched it since the new
what do you
Batwoman
think
took over.
the impact of this SJW lunge into pop culture has done from a retailer's point of view? Because when I first pointed out to you what Ethan was saying about the decline in the production output by the big two, particularly DC, and that being because, of course, he has more knowledge of DC. That's where he worked on Green Lantern and whatnot. You were like, no, I don't. But have you seen that now with the distribution list? And
there are other factors into the distribution list. The whole COVID nonsense that we've been going through, and now with problems with printing supplies and supply chain is causing issues literally right now. For instance, Image Comics has announced that they're not going to do any reprints of any kind for the foreseeable future so that they can just devote the resources that they have to putting out the new books. Marvel has actually said that they're having to delay their more ancillary titles. They're just going to focus more on the mainstream stuff, and so the secondary stuff is going to they're still going to publish it, but it may not come out as regularly as it should. So I think that's affecting it.
Let me ask this though: not just the distribution of what they're publishing, but the number of titles they're actually publishing. I know DC, because we saw the list, they cut so many titles from their production. Have you seen that down on the consumer end where you're at?
The number of different titles, yes, they have cut down on, but kind of what they're replacing it with is they're just coming out with all kinds of different Batman titles, which they're
focusing on their key money makers.
Yeah, as much as I like Batman, they're almost doing too much with Batman now, I think. And actually, a little bit to my surprise, they're starting to do that with Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman has never been a huge draw, but just what you said, they're focusing, especially with DC Comics books, they're focusing on their big three, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're coming out with more titles for them, but the differentiation between characters has definitely been cut.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have quite a big of a pool of various characters out there. And Marvel is kind of doing the same thing. They're putting so much focus on all of their X-Men titles.
Mm-hmm.
And continuing to do that. Spider-Man is the same way. There's a bunch of different Spider-Man titles that are coming out.
And less, let's call it, as a creator and lover of the old school comics, I would say less new content. Today, I would say less experimenting. They're not taking gambles on new stuff.
Right. And taking this whole SJW soy boy nonsense the way that they are, it's actually driving some people away from comic books. Some people who have been in comic books for a long time. I mentioned the comic book store I'm in. We have one customer. He's a retired Army colonel and gigantic Superman fan. He has his collection of action comics goes back to the early 40s, and he has a continuous run all the way from there.
Wow.
Well, he's on the verge of dropping Superman outright because of what they're starting to do with Superman.
Hmm.
Not just with his son, but you may have also heard that they've changed his moniker. It's no longer Truth, Justice, and the American Way. They took the American Way
Yeah.
out. It's now something like a
Did
better
you
way.
see the? It's been in the mainstream press. The colorist on that book is Gabe El Taib. He literally told DC to shove it and walked away because of that, and it made mainstream news, including and then a little bit less mainstream, but the Daily Wire. Was it Ben Shapiro guys that carried that story? Ethan had him on his stream when he just said it. I've had enough. He is a son of an emigre from Libya who survived Muammar Gaddafi and found their life and their freedom in America. And he is deeply offended by the direction DC's going. And he just said, F you, I've had enough. I'm out. Peace. Bye. And his reception here into the Comicsgate community has been astounding. He's seeing the love that Comicsgate has for creators who have integrity and a love of this weird, kooky little field we're all in, and versus the soy creatures that are infesting it. So yeah, that was a very big deal. Losing Truth, Justice, and the American Way to Truth, Justice, and a Better Tomorrow.
Yes. Uh, and I mean, I don't know the direction that Comicsgate is going to go. I mean, I don't know if they're just going to strictly be selling your stuff on Indiegogo and Kickstarter. I don't know if you plan on forming your own company for artists. I mean, only the
No,
future will tell.
everyone stays independent in Comicsgate. Yeah, Tree Goblin says True Justice of the American Way is public domain. It's no longer trademark. That is absolutely correct. um, but there are some Comicsgate creators, the big guys. Ethan, for example, said he wants to try to get into some retail establishments. And I'm not going to say a name of one because I don't want to misquote him. But some of those guys, when a book fulfills, it'll go in demand. And plus, like if I publish mine and it funds and I print 1,000, but I sell 500, even though I'm funded, I might take that other 500 and go to a comic book store and say, hey, will you sell my books? So there's some of that that's going to go on. Some Comicsgate people are beginning to pool together to publish one another. I think JDA is publishing others. Dark Gift is going to be publishing someone other than himself. And then some of them are helping with fulfillment because overseas shipping is a nightmare. So, for example, Marv, who did Sin Killer, which is a fantastic book, he literally got someone in the States to fulfill over here to avoid the shipping and the postage. And they're doing that vice versa because the EU is just a nightmare right now
Mm-hmm.
for that stuff, and Australia as well. So,
Well, see, that's
and
the kind of like what I was saying earlier is, at least in comic books, we need to develop a counterculture to what's going on. So we, if we can band together and develop our own conservative comic book company, maybe even distribute that ourselves and go counter to the DCs and the Marvels.
uh-oh, I lost Charles. He'll be back. Let me message him so he knows he can come back. So if you're just joining us, we are talking to Charles Adams. Guy's got somewhere between 25,000 and 30,000 comics, plus all kinds of other collectibles. Uh, his collection is so big that he's got a 2-bedroom apartment just so he can sleep on the couch, I think. And I'm glad to have all of you joining us. Pops, one of the things I intend to get after you tomorrow about is I want to know a little bit more about your collection while we're talking collections. But where were we? Oh, there's Charles. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back.
I don't know what happened there.
You fell off the earth. I was going to say this. There was a controversy in Comicsgate. There's always a controversy in Comicsgate. You can't get creative people together without it. But one individual wanted to say, "Hey, there's going to be a constitution and a code and all this, that, and the other," and everybody was like, "No, f that. We are going to remain completely independent but cooperative." So a lot like Southern Baptists, independent but cooperative. Um, Having said that, uh, the counterculture that you mentioned, Charles, meet
Hmm.
Comicsgate. Comicsgate, this is Charles. Charles, welcome to Comicsgate. Will you say, "Hail Comicsgate"?
Hail Comics Gate.
Yeah, see, he's one of us guys. So,
No, I agree fully with what's going on with Comics Gate.
mhm,
And I mean, if it's just going to be a bunch of the conglomerate of people who self-publish and self-distribute, so be it.
mhm.
Uh,
But they do
it would be,
collaborate.
yes, but it would be good to be able to get stuff like that into comic book stores.
Yes, it would. And so, a Comicsgate person who decides, "I'm not an artist, I'm not a writer, I don't make comic books," would be like Pops. He's a promoter. He, hey, there's brother Andy. Andy, everyone, I'm gonna drop the link into chat, and if I know you, you can come in and talk. If I don't know you, then piss off. So let me do that. So Andy, if you'd like to pop in, love to have you, brother. Andy is a artist and a darn good one who's doing a book that's fairly top secret. And Andy, by the way, has the best sinister lab assistant laugh you've ever heard in your life. um, but if someone like Pops, who is a promoter, decided, my contribution to Comicsgate would be that I'm a distributor, wouldn't that be awesome?
Hmm.
Because that would be huge. And as a matter of fact, somebody in chat remind me, I think there actually is such a person that says, "Hey, I will market your comics. Your overrun that you do when you fulfill a book, they'll take those and they'll market them." I know I've heard this before from somewhere. So, Charles, to go back to what we were saying, the collectors in your store, I would venture to guess that it's got to be only the speculators that are saying, "Oh, I got to get a copy of Tim Drake coming out. I got to get a copy of Superboy or whatever coming out." Uh, and then I guess some completionists would say, "I've just got to have it because it's part of the run." But the general appeal of the walk-in, the first-time buyers, the new collectors, are you getting any feedback from them about this, the left direction? Hell, are you getting positive feedback from soy creatures?
Oh yeah, I mean, in the comic book store that we're in, we have a very wide selection of political leaning, religious leaning, sexual leaning, all of that stuff. So yes, we do have the customers that love this stuff and they
Hmm.
buy it up.
Hmm.
Uh, One particular customer, you know who AOC is. They did a couple of AOC comic books. The store ordered one copy of that comic book and they ordered it for him because he had to have it. Uh, so yeah, we do have those people there and they will buy that stuff. You are correct in the speculators because of how hot something like that. Um, take take Superman's son coming out in that issue. Uh, Speculators are going to come in and they are going to buy that up, and you will probably see it selling on eBay for like $20 for the first couple of weeks. Going back to the whole speculator market kind of thing, that's one thing that happens with with the speculator market is you might have that hot book that week, and for that week or two, it might jump up in price to $50 or $100. But then the weeks after that, it drops like a rock,
Right.
and it
Right.
probably comes, depending on what it is, might drop down to like $5 or something.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Let me
so
welcome. This is Andy Omacha Saiban. I have no idea what that means. Andy, are you having technical issues or are you with me?
No, I think I'm here.
All right, buddy. Welcome. Glad to have you. There's the evil laugh. Cracks me up every time.
Hello, Charles.
hello.
How have you been, Andy?
I'm good.
You've
Just
been
working.
busy. You've been a
I've
busy
been
man.
very yes,
Um,
yes. And you always stream during the day. I'm always at work.
I'm streaming during the day right now to take advantage of the light. The outlet I have my spotlight plugged into is dead. So once it gets dark, I'm backlit and that's it. And this doesn't make for good streaming content if you can't see my glorious face. Shut up, Andy. How much do you think Cyberfrog 2 will sell for? Do you have any of the original Cyberfrog that you know of, Charles?
I do not.
You don't have them or you don't know?
I do not have them.
Okay. They were originally on Harris Comics, I believe. Um, and of course, now they're independent with Wrecked Planet and Blood Honey. Uh, and they look great. I'm echoing. Somebody's got me echoing. Andy, use your headphones.
My headphones are dead.
Oh, okay. Andy, are you a collector as well?
Yes and no. I'm not really like a. I'm not a purist. I have to have every issue of a comic book. I mean, I'm sorry, but if a story sucks, I'm not gonna buy it.
Okay. So you're a reader.
Yes.
Okay. All right. You go for the good story and the good art, and you like what you like. How many would you say you've gotten? How long have you been buying comics?
Uh, I'm more of a collector of graphic novels these days. I used to collect individual issues, but space is a big problem.
Yeah. 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 Ask Charles about space for storing comic books. His
Yeah,
My
I used
comic
bed.
book
to.
boxes are my bed.
Yeah, I used to have probably close to 5,000 graphic novels.
Wow. That's a
That was
lot.
just 3 years ago, but I've whittled it down to maybe a couple hundred.
Hmm. Hmm. Did you, by the way, did you get Shotgun Samurai?
No, I did not.
That is a hell of a big book. Have you seen that thing?
Uh, I've looked at it. I don't remember. I look at so many. It's hard to
Yeah.
remember everyone.
Andy backs a lot of the Comicsgate independent books. Shotgun Samurai by the Quaff is almost 300 pages. 300 pages. So that's it, Charles. I'm not going to publish mine until I get at least 200 pages. By the way, guys, Pops, if you want to drop the link to your channel, I would love for you to do that. I will be on the Halloween CromCon tomorrow at 5 o'clock. I will be debuting the finished cover that I'm getting back from the great Phil Leon, or Phil Leon, depending on how you want to say it, my colorist. So I'll be publishing that tomorrow for the first time. Yay! So that's tomorrow at 5 on Comics Talk with Pops Van Zant. Somebody please drop the link for me in there. Do I have any of my moderators here? Andy, aren't you a moderator?
I don't know. I don't know how to do any of that shit. I've been streaming probably just a few weeks longer than you, man.
And I bet you I know less than you do.
No, you know how to operate a stream. I just barely figured that out the other day.
Hey, Andy, would you mind cameraing up and showing our chat and Charles some of your work?
I don't have any right here with me at the moment. Give me a second.
Okay, take your time. Andy is a professional tattoo artist, so he has that precise inking style that is just amazing. His contrast and composition is wonderful. He is probably the opposite of me. He has a lot of drafting skills where mine is going to look like an impressionist did it. It's very fast, fluid, and uh, expressive. His is precise and just beautiful work. And are we allowed to know the name of the book you're working on, Andy? No, he's
It's
been.
not really a secret anymore. It's dead in the water.
No, why is it dead in the water?
The writer left after the first issue, so I've got one issue I'm just finishing up, and then I've been working on other stuff.
Okay. Well, what will the book be called, and is it going to be published?
I haven't given a title yet. There's working titles. Like one right now is what my username is.
Omachasivan.
Yeah, it means toy justice in Japanese,
Hmm.
or justice. Yeah,
But would not necessarily be a manga book.
no, I
Yeah,
just like the name.
yeah, because I've seen your art and it's not manga. It's beautiful, but it's not manga.
No, but there's a lot of influences.
Yeah, sure,
Hold on,
absolutely.
I gotta check. I just got a text. It's work related, so I gotta. Oh, I can turn this on so you can see.
Okay, there we go. Let me full
My
screen
camera's
you.
being really like everything's working slow today. Last couple of days. Get that a little straighter. There's one. Here's a newer
Nice.
image.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one. So this panda is a Punisher.
No, that's a toy, but yeah,
Yeah, isn't he a toy panda? I know he's a
yeah.
teddy bear. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's really good brickwork too, by the way. I just did a page with bricks in it, and it was a nightmare.
I don't use rulers very much.
Yeah, but it still looks good.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means, Tree Goblin. Oh
The
man,
ears aren't
Andy,
thick.
that is amazing. Look at that.
Well, right now I'm done with because I want to do a poster book with it, and I'm done with the actual poster book. That's what all this stuff is.
Mhm.
There's 24 images that I did. You know,
Wow,
there's part of a double page spread. Hold
that
on.
looks amazing.
My camera's really lagging. Jesus
That's
Christ.
right. For us, it looks like a slideshow.
This is part of a double page. I'm not showing the other side. I've shown it enough.
Okay,
Here's some cards I want to do. It's a 3 gate. Yeah, three of them together make one card image.
nice, nice,
There's a backside that has the same, not the same thing, but you can't really see those. But I have 9 cards that I want to do as well.
hmm
And on the backside, they'll have one giant image. So it's a 9-panel card that makes artwork.
beautiful.
Um, here's a.
Wow.
I want to make a probably a pin out of this or something.
Yeah,
But that's the little panda. It's supposed to be a panda skull, but I just kind of stylized it because it's a toy, so
Heck
how they
yeah,
make skulls are a little different.
that does look good. So, am I to understand then, Andy, that you are an available artist if a writer is looking for somebody?
Yeah, I'm always available for something.
All right, fantastic. Oh, we lost Charles.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so Charles said his battery has died. He's going to go make dinner. Blah blah blah. So, Charles Adams, Mega Collector, thanks for being with us. Really appreciate your insight. That was a good interview. We'll keep going for just a little while longer because I haven't seen old Andy in a minute. So Andy is saying, yes, he's available, writers. If you're looking for a comic skate artist, there he is. He could team up with Bipolar Bear, says Tree Goblin. The panda creation is the writer's creation. Is that correct?
No, it's mine.
It's your creation. Okay.
Yeah, I own it.
All right. Well, then, if you need a writer, get with me. I do write as well as draw, and I write every bit as well as I make art. So let me know. Let me know.
Well, right now I'm working on a horror superhero kind of thing by myself. I've
Nice.
got it all. I've got 4 issues already thumbnailed and worked out, and the dialogue I'm not 100% sure on yet, but it's coming along.
Fantastic. And
I
this
work
is
pretty quick when I put my mind to it.
right. And this is going to be something that you're going to launch on Indiegogo at some point.
At some point, yeah. Because I
All
also
right.
still have my art book that is finished.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have shit. I have 2 other comic books that are pretty almost over 2/3 done as far as artwork goes. I'm just redrawing a bunch of shit. I have 2 other ones that are laid out. Probably another 4 that are roughly beginning, and then a couple others that are just basically story ideas, and then a screenplay.
Nice. So if we were going to say we want to drop some money on an Andy project, when would be the earliest we could expect to see a drop on the crowdfunding?
Not anytime soon.
Middle of next
I'm
year?
I'm gonna get I'm going to get I'm gonna try to get at least 4 of these projects in the can before I do anything.
I got you.
I'm just taking my time. I'm not rushing. I have a day job that I love, so I'm not hurrying myself for anything.
I got you. Well, that's the
But
same approach I'm taking. I'm not going to launch a campaign until the book is done. And the scans are done, and I have composited in Photoshop. Once that's done, I'll launch. So I don't know if I told you, Andy, I'm at 25 pages now.
That's cool.
So I gave myself a day off today. I'm not drawing anything, not painting anything, not doing any commission. I delivered a commission today. Yay! So finally some money from my art again after the world ended. So glad to have that. Andy, we gotta get you some new headphones, brother.
Oh, I got some at work. I haven't worked today, so I wasn't working today, so.
Got you. Gave yourself the day off also.
Well, I mean, I wasn't working on my other job. I've been working on the comic book, but no, for a couple of weeks there, my right ear, which is my only good ear, was fucked up. So headphones weren't really an option.
I got you.
It's still kind of messed up, but
yeah,
I had headphones the other day that were working, but they stopped working on me.
I have a military injury induced hearing impairment in my right ear. That's why you'll always see my left ear facing toward people when they're talking. It was a little disconcerting when I was a counselor, leaning in to listen. So all these do. God, my new puppy, Andy. Did you see my new dog? Did I show you? Did you see that
I think
video?
I saw it.
Yeah, she ate my good headphones. Ate them. Yum yum. Gone. So I ordered these, and they hurt my ears. I don't like them. The other ones were very comfy. So I think I'm going to
Well,
get some.
most anything I put on my ears hurt them, and then the earbuds really fuck with my ears as well. So it's like I'm kind of screwed all around.
Ugh. Hey, chat, tell me, is it better to have earbuds? I've never tried them. The earbud set up with the microphone right here, is that better than the headset? I mean,
I've
Charles
seen
thinks
either
so.
way.
Yeah, Charles uses those, and that's what he was using when he was on with us. All right, guys, what I'm going to do, let me pull up another YouTube blank here.
Yeah, I'll be right back.
Go ahead, go ahead. I'm going to drop the link for Pops' channel. If you guys haven't subscribed yet, you're missing something. You need to be subscribed. I'll be debuting the cover of Pariah Blood and Mud tomorrow at 5 p.m. for the Halloween CromCon. So pop in, say hi. Would love to have you there. And noise! Intense Webs, I know your name. We've spoken before, but I can't remember who you are right now. And of course, Goblin's been around forever. Always good to see him. Well, good. I hope you're in that chat, brother. Let's see. Who is this messaging me? I can't find it. Just dinged and I can't find it. I've got too many windows open. It's all so confusing. Stuff in your face. Thanks for the shout out. You got it, Pops. Glad to have you as always. I'm looking forward to being on the show tomorrow. I'm going to watch earlier so I'll have more to talk about. So I'll start watching as soon as you launch tomorrow. And some good names on there. Mike Barron is going to be on, you guys, of Punisher fame, but still very active. Great writer. And I'm looking forward to seeing my friends on, Elasmad and the inimitable Dory and some of the others. Phil. Phil's going to be on, is he not, Pops? Gotta wait for a response. But yeah, with that, I'm going to just go ahead and wrap this stream up. And I appreciate you guys tuning in. It was a hoot. If you get the opportunity, go back and watch the whole video. I'm going to leave it up. Great interview with Charles, who is a mega collector. I think he said between 25 and 30,000 comic books, plus an amazing array of action figures, toys. He once gave me a original series digital sound effect first Romulan bird of prey that I treasured, and it was stolen. But he collects a lot of pop culture stuff, but mainly comic books. Also works at a comic book store, and he basically manages it. And some really good insight from that end that we, as either collectors or creators or fans, don't often get to hear. So I thought that would be a pretty interesting interview, and it was. So big shout out to Charles Adams. Thank you for coming on, brother. Really appreciate you. Andy, always a pleasure to have you, sir.
Yeah, always.
You bet, brother. Anytime I'm on, you're always welcome. Tree Goblin, good to see you. Intense Webs, good to see you. Pops, always a pleasure. I'm going to sign out. God bless. Peace.
Later, y'all.